Hi, everybody. Welcome to Crank Up the Volume. And this is my PWHL draft wrap up. There was a lot that happened in these 2 days this past week. Some things are still fleshing themselves out. So, really, I'm just going to concentrate on what I normally do, which is more of the social interpersonal and kind of cultural aspect of the happenings that are happening around the sports world, specifically PWHL. And with everything that's happening right now, I think that is really, really important to hone in on because it might help with some of the of understanding what some of the actions that are taking place and also kind of where some of the, let's say, frustrations and disdain might be coming from. So I'm going to just share my aspect of what happened. I'm going to walk you through the 2 days that I was there, kind of what I saw and what I observed and what heard and discussions that kind of happened off the record, but I'm not going to say too much about those things, but just to kind of let you know that I was really I will say I was kind of surprised by how things wrapped up. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing because there were some very good surprises along the way, as some of you might know about, and I'm feeling very grateful for those pleasant surprises. So let's just get into it. So one is, someone was saying, "How come you're not talking about some of the player interactions and the changes and stuff?" And that is because everything's not done. I don't feel like I wanna put too much time into speculating or commenting on a move when that move might not be the final move, right? We already know that that's happening. I think a great example right now is what happened with Bugs, right? Back on the 16th, it was being reported by several outlets, including our friends at Beneath the Waves. Hey, Jenna's still on the roster, so she's staying in Seattle. We were so happy about that, right? Then what happens a couple of days ago? Yeah, we got that. And again, things are still not done. So I am waiting until everything has settled, that we know what's going on. And I'm really hoping too that by the time I do start to talk about that we would have heard something directly from the front office, specifically Megan Turner, about some of the reasons why she's made the decisions that she has. So until then, I'm not going to go specifically into those things. So I do want to talk about things a little bit more high level. So one is the press conference. So I've posted already clips from the press conference and also the full thing because I do believe that it's good to have a full context of something that's being discussed, especially something as important as what's been going on with the draft, how it came together, some of the issues that fans and media alike have had some issues and questions about. So that in and of itself could be a whole episode. So go ahead and check that out if you really want to kind of get the full breadth of what happened. But I will say that the press conference kind of set a tone, and it was not necessarily the tone that I was thinking it was going to set. So we had the executive vice presidents of both the business side, which is Amy Shear, and on the hockey operations side, which is Jenna Hefford, came in and they started with their opening statements. And I will say that the opening statements very much came, how can I say, the backs were up. I mean, I think they're hearing it, and I think maybe they were trying to respond to some of the frustrations and issues that have been circulating around the news and social media, and it was very much a kind of backs up. Here's where we are. So again, I'm going to say you go and watch that, and you interpret for yourself how you felt like that came off. But it definitely set a tone within the press room to go, okay, this is going to be somewhat defensive. But and again, my goal in the couple of questions that I did end up asking was trying to kind of be more in the neutral zone. I didn't feel like it was really a good time or a good opportunity to say, hey, why didn't you do it this way? Why didn't you do it that way? It's just really tried to open up a way for them to speak more about the decisions that they made. And I would say the two questions that I asked, I think Amy Shear was very specific. In answering that question, and then I would think the other one that I did gear towards hockey operations was very kind of mid-level. Um, And again, that might have been intentional because I think, again, there's still things that are happening in the background, but I think that really did set the tone. And in hindsight, and once I get to the overall observations of this, I'll probably tie that all together. But I think that did kind of set it up to be very, you know, back up, super businessy, and very much unlike the jovial, more exciting aspect of the draft that I experienced last year, granted as a fan, when I was in Ottawa. And I will say this, I did not also realize that I would probably I was technically the Seattle, media, at the draft, so I just felt like it was really important for me to try to be in spaces and be able to connect with our front office and be able to connect with, the potential prospects, and the players that were there, just because otherwise I don't think there would have been anything specific to them that would have been asked at the press conference or even at the draft itself when we get to the press room. So that was a little bit daunting, but I felt like I was up to the challenge and I was going to do what I could do to make that happen. So press conference was the press conference, and yeah, it felt a little heavy. But shout out to I got to meet Ian Kennedy, and I've only met him online before. We've exchanged, things on social media, specifically on Twitter, in the past. But he was just a great guy to hang out with. So he was cool. So thank you, Ian, and shout out to him again because even throughout the course of things, he kind of looked out for me. So like, especially when it was time for the actual draft and trying to maneuver our ways around Fox Theater and getting into the red carpet and stuff. He was kind of like looking out for me, kind of like I'm not gonna say a big brother, but he was really kind of helping me out through that. So I really really appreciated that he did that. I didn't ask him to do it, but he totally did it on his own. So I totally appreciate that. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of how the press conference went. And that was at Little Caesars Arena. Now, I'm gonna say this too. Again, I'm a native Detroiter, so I've always known that Detroit is hockey town. But I'm gonna tell you, when I got to downtown Detroit, and I hadn't been down in over a decade, really. And I get there and it's if you didn't know Detroit was hockey town or was branding itself as hockey town, you knew that as soon as you hit downtown Detroit. I mean, it was everywhere. And just seeing like the Hockey Town Cafe literally next to the Fox Theater and Little Caesars headquarters right there as well. I mean, everything. It was Detroit showed up and showed out. So kudos to them. So right after the press conference, we walked across the hall to where the 12 top prospects were going to be available. And that was a little interesting because it was kind of in a scrum, I guess that's what they call it. So they had, two folks, two prospects each at a table, so a total of six kind of high boy tables. And Layla had been paired with Kirsten Sims, so I got to chat with the two of them a little bit, and I did post that earlier. I did get to talk to Abby Murphy as well, and a couple of other players. And that was a little interesting just because, too, again, Detroit media was predominant, obviously, there. I mean, the big news crews. So while the rest of us are walking around with our little microphones and cameras and what have you, they had the big, huge cameras and was really like, they all like positioned themselves in front of the table that Layla was at. So it's like, okay. And we only really had 30 minutes total once they did come out to be able to ask them any questions that they would have to. So we're all jockeying for position, so on and so forth. And for the majority of the time, again, those big cameras were in front of Layla and Kirsten's table. So if you did see my video earlier of where I was asking Layla and Kirsten about, feeling like it was the second graduation and, because tried to keep it light, right? That's why I was at a weird angle because literally the 2, 3 cameras from the large organizations were deadly front and center. So we were all kind of, trying to get around. So it was really good. So again, I got to talk to Layla and Kirsten and Abby. And again, that was probably one of the more jovial times of the day until we got to the awards. So later on that day, at a different location down the street, they had the PWHL awards, and I didn't know what to expect because we saw who the nominees were, and so I didn't think there's going to be any Torrent folks at the awards at all, let alone the draft. But obviously, it ended up being that. Why am I blanking right now? I need coffee. But like, let me go get it right now. But Hannah Murphy was there because one of the announcements that awards that came out was the all rookie team. And Hannah was named to the all rookie team. So that was very cool. And the other thing, and I'm hoping that they're going to have this video online at some point. It wasn't up as of the time of this recording. They really did do a nice job of showing Seattle some love towards the beginning. So they did kind of this 2-minute recap video of our season. Now, I want to tell you though, as great as it was a little bit kind of stabby in the heart because, of course, the players that were focused on that video are now drafted by Detroit. So, in that closing image of Kayla, I was like, oh, tried to hold it in, right? So they did show Seattle some love in that sense. So the awards happened. It was nearly a sweep by the Boston Fleet from Coach of the Year, everything. Even Aaron Franco got 2 awards, one being the Billie Jean King Award. So shout out to the Boston Fleet. They showed up, they showed out, they got the awards. There was only one category that they didn't win, and that was only because no one from the team was nominated in that category. 'Cause otherwise, I feel like if there had been a nominee from the Fleet in that one category, they would have swept the whole thing. But again, it was great. It was fun. It was light. And again, the prospects were having fun, and it was a good time. Um, so after that, went back to my hotel. And again, you probably already saw my other posts about this as well, being able to kind of hang out and connect with Mama Edwards and even Layla, because they were at Mama Edwards and I were at the same hotel. So I got to talk to her and actually a few others. And, it was really enlightening to kind of hear kind of some of those interpersonal aspects of what was going on. And that's going to take me a little bit to Abby Murphy. Now, again, I posted a while back when I first heard that, Abby might be a contender for someone to be drafted to the Torrent. I was like, what's going on, right? It's like I was hearing and seeing all these things on social media about like she's a particular type of person. And I was like, I don't see that, right? I don't see it like as overtly as maybe Curl, right? And so there are people that I ended up talking to offline, and they were, mentioning her. And the thing that was the overall theme was that, and these are people that have spent time with her and her family over the years, was that they were really surprised to see this being said about her in the recent weeks, because that was not necessarily their experience with her interpersonally. And again, I think this is one of those situations where, again, you don't necessarily have to agree with somebody or something, or a certain lifestyle, you want to call the way that someone lives, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're anti what have yous. So I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that Abby Murphy is one way or another way. I'm just one of those people that says, look, I want to see the bigger picture, and show me something awful, like, other than what happened with her comment about um the men's team, which was, I personally think is unfortunate, but everyone has an opinion, right? And if we are saying that we're supposed to be, creating a space where everyone can be into, then there's going to be some times where you don't necessarily agree with someone stance on something. Now, is someone pushing that out and being like really overt about it and being almost to the point of hateful? That's a whole other story. That is yet for me to be seen, in my opinion, on however this goes. But I think also as fans and as a culture that we've created here in Seattle, we can do what we want to do in order to preserve what we've built. Does that make sense? Um, it's not everyone's going to come in packaged the way that we might want them to be. But I think we need to also allow that we are creating space and saying, hey, this is who we are here. And I think we've done that. And I think that's what we want to continue to do. I would say the other thing I'm going to say is that don't take it out on the all because of one. We're talking about a full team here, and we should not allow our perceptions of one person, one player, one person's ideology to throw out everything else that's been about this team. And I know it's going to be subject for debate. Go ahead and debate it. This is just my opinion. But I think that's where we are. And I think in my mind, it's take an obstacle and create an opportunity. What is the opportunity that we can create to say, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is how we are going to show up? So just think about that for a second. So now let's go into the draft. So the next day, the draft is the big deal, obviously. Um, it was a lot of fun, especially when I first got there and there was the fan zone. And the fan zone, again, it was so many people, and I got there early. But even as early as I got there, Seattle, we always complain about our merch line. That merch line was literally around the block. Just for the Detroit stuff that was in the fan zone. Now, once you got inside the Fox Theater, there was merch for all the other teams as well, including the Torrent. So that was kind of cool as well. The red carpet, again, amazing. And I think I'm guessing because there was the threat of rain. It was supposed to be like a 95% chance of rain right about the time that the red carpet and the draft was supposed to begin. So everything was moved indoors. So where the red carpet was and where the merch was, there was maybe 7 feet of space between them, so it got a little bit crowded. But I also think that that's really cool. There was a lot of reporters there. There was seeing the players come down the carpet, come down the steps, and interview different people. And again, shout out to the staff that was helping to, from the handlers to the other ones that were kind of wrangling and making sure that certain media outlets who wanted to talk to a particular player could do that. Did that. I was there for a couple of minutes, but then I decided that's not really where I wanted to be because I wanted to kind of check out the rest of the setup and see where I was going to be. So at each point that we were at, be it the awards the awards or at the press conference, those who were designated with media credentials had an assigned space for themselves to be. So in this case, for the awards itself, there were 3 different places. You were either assigned to the orchestra pit, which was like the place you wanted to be, right? Because it was literally right in front of the stage, so you can get the best photos, you can get everything, and it's right next to where the announcers were at that was doing the call outs and the immediate interviews. So that was one place. The second place would be in the theater itself, close to the stage, that was designated just for us. And I did have a seat there. And so I stayed there for a little while, and I took that opportunity to check out the scene, see what else was going on. So here you can see me here, and there's the draft, and I'm like, oh my God, here we are, we're here, right? And there was a lot of activity going on. And the third spot, if you didn't have an assignment or just wanted to go downstairs, there was this media room area that had that you could plug in and you can watch from down there. And they were live streaming the awards, both in this media workroom and also in the press room. And I decided to camp out in the press room. But before we went over to that, I went, again, came back upstairs, wanted to look around, see who was here. And I did see Megan Turner on the stage. So I waved to her and she kind of started to walk towards me. So I'm like, okay, let's have a discussion. Now, here's where, again, the interpersonal social aspect of this comes. First of all, shout out to Megan because, again, everything was busy, so I was not necessarily expecting her to come over and give me a few minutes of her time to just kind of talk casually and talk about what's going on. And again, we just kind of reminisced a little bit in the sense of, here I am again, because I saw her first at the Ottawa draft and, kind of say, look where we are now. We're here a year later. Look how much things have grown and changed and what's going on. But as pleasant as our interaction is, I was very much listening to what she was saying to me or not saying to me. And I will say, after our interaction, it was clear to me that Layla was not going to be the pick. Um, there was conversation really around, rebuilding the team and, people being patient, kind of seeing, see how things play out first before, judging for real. And I'm like, that does not sound like somebody that's about to pick the fan favorite. Um, so I took that as that was. Um, so there that was. And so after that, walked around some more. And again, as I saw some of the front office staff kind of, walking around and doing what you need to do. And again, it's a production. It's really for them, it's a business situation, right? It's not fun and jovial as it would be for a fan. But there was just some you could tell something was up. You could just tell that it was not the same spirit. There wasn't this sense of yay going on. And again, I don't know what all of that is about, but there was something. And later on, I would come to find out because I tried not to get in my own head that I'd had other fans who did travel from Seattle, and it was not an inexpensive trip whatsoever. I mean, I know there are people told me, hey, they had to use miles because the airfare was so expensive to get out there. But they're diehard fans. They wanted to be here to show up and support. But several of those fans came up to me unsolicited and was just like, what's happening? But I get to that in my overall observations. So again, the fan zone was great. The red carpet was fun. Going into the theater, being able to talk to Megan for a little bit. And then I ended up going down to the press room. So again, the reason why I chose not to sit in the cushy chairs in the theater, but to be in the press room was for one or two reasons. One, I did personally want to be able to engage with those who were drafted as soon as they were, just kind of get some of that first reaction. And two, being heavily reminded that literally I'm the only Seattle media there. Um, and that would come to be really important and play out because as we go through them coming through the press room, um, again, the first 10 players, the top prospects that were drafted, media, no matter where they were from, were asking questions. Once you got further down the line, the media outlets that were there were really only asking questions of their particular players, meaning the players that maybe are on the team of where that media outlet is represented. So if you were from one team but there was nobody there from that city that was there to cover it or ask questions, there were very few questions asked of that player. And shout out to Paul, who's with PWHL. He made sure to have questions for everybody. So no player went without having any questions asked of them, but it definitely became clear as you get further down the list that there were going to be fewer and fewer questions being asked. So I was literally the only person there specifically asking our draftees questions. So I'm glad I got to play a little small part in that. And I'm going to post more of those as individual clips throughout the course of the week if you haven't already seen them in other spots themselves. Um, so that was kind of how it wrapped up. It ended up being a very long day. Um, and another thing I posted about earlier is that again the league has doubled in 2 years from 6 to 12. And when I was there in Ottawa, it was going from 6 to 8. So it still didn't feel that long, but now you're talking about 12 teams and rounds of six. Yeah, it made for a long evening. But I really made the conscious decision to keep my energy up, even though I was getting really exhausted at that point. Because again, it was really about those players and their excitement. And so I just wanted to make sure that, once by the time they got to the press room, which had literally began to literally thin out, um, I just wanted to play some kind of small role um, and having them come in there and see that there is like, three or four of us at least that were excited to see them and wanted to engage with them. And um, I think there was 1 or 2 players that were not Torrent that I got to ask questions of. One is Caitlin Roberts, and you probably have seen that circulating, over the past couple of days, and I gotta tell you, I was not expecting my what I consider a simple question to Caitlin to become a thing that was quoted and put on ESPN and ESPNW, so yay! That was kind of fun. So, let's get on to my overall observations of everything that went down. Oh, wait, one more thing. Um, as I was getting ready to leave, there were 2 more things that happened. One is that, the GM availability came right after that. So, it's like 11 PM-ish around this time. So I was there to ask Megan Turner some questions, and those questions actually came from a lot of you. So those of you that are on the Torrent Discord, I'm going to be publishing those soon. I had some technical issues with that, so I just wanted to make sure that what I got was accurate before I published it. So I'm just doing a little bit of fact checking on some of the areas that didn't come out very clear, just to make sure that I quote it correctly, because I don't want to put out anything out there that's not correct. Um, and so we did that, and I got to ask her 3 different questions. So again, that will be posted soon. And then we could leave. As I was leaving, though, I'm getting on this elevator. I'm tired as get out. And this one woman stops the elevator and she's like, "Hey, can you hold this for us?" I'm like, "Mm." But I'm glad I did, because the next person that jumped up on there was Detroit's GM. So clearly didn't get a chance to really talk to her, but I was super happy. I was like, "Hey, I would love to follow up with you at some point," and she gave me her card. So I'm gonna wait until after the dust settles again, when all the trades have been done and everything's locked in. My hope is to be able to connect back with her and talk to her about everything that happened with the draft and what she's expecting, and just what Seattle will be paying attention to this team, since a lot of our favorite players went there. So she was receptive to that. So we'll see what happens. So okay, let's go into my observations. And again, they're my observations. Um, One, it was definitely the Detroit show, as it should be. They were hosting. Um, and again, they were great hosts, at least to, the media folks that were there. They fed us well. They just made sure everything was good. There was no issues getting in and out of certain buildings. It was great. Security was great. I have no complaints. There was nothing that went sideways from a hosting perspective of them taking care of us. It was really, really good. So shout out to them. Again, my thoughts about Abby Murphy is, let's see how it plays out, you guys. And I would say engage. And also, I would say talk to the other players that are still currently on our team that have, celebrated her coming to the Torrent. Um, I think that's something to make sure that we're factoring in as well. Because again, they have a better relationship or know her better than we do. And I think that's really important to factor that in to the overall feel or feelings that we might have about this decision. Um, and then going back to something I was talking about earlier. Again, I feel like I don't want to keep saying lack of joy. I don't think lack of joy is really what I want to say. But I want to say that it was just a weird energy. Um, and it was not an energy that people felt excited. And now I'm, again, going back to the fan part of this, right? Again, when I went to Ottawa, I was the only one. I was the only one here. This time, not so much. And I think that's a great thing. And I'm gonna tell you, Megan actually acknowledged that when I did talk to her. She's like, it's hard to plan a bus trip to come here, right? So she knows that, people came, and was pretty very appreciative of the one times that we did do our bus trips up to Vancouver to support the team. So she knows. And she acknowledged that. But maybe something that can be thought about, and this is just a suggestion to the front office folks. Maybe they don't know this or know to what extent, but Torrent fans know who you are. They recognize you. They might not recognize or know what your title is. But they know folks that work for the team. And I had again, I had fans coming up to me and saying, "Is everything okay?" Because every time we saw one of them, they were not smiling. They just breezed past us, no acknowledgement whatsoever. And when I say acknowledgement, when you got the fans walking around in very pricey Torrent swag, including that $150, Torrent sweatshirt walking around, and they see you, I think they're expecting a head nod, a good to see you, or think something. And a lot of them said they did not get that and that they just felt like something was off. So whatever that means, whatever's going on, I'm just saying that to the front office staff, fans are noticing that. Um, Even at the airport, when we were leaving the next day, and I was there, I was sitting with a couple of fans that were on the same flight with me, and they recognized a couple of Torrent front office people there, and again, just breezed on by. And I know it was a long few days. I get it, and it's a early. I mean, it was a 7 a.m. flight, so very, very early, but again, that wasn't the only time, that they commented about that, but it was throughout the course of all, of the draft itself. So, my hope is that, front office will recognize that, "Hey, fans know you guys. They know your faces at least, and they just wanna see something. They just want you to give them something," right? And especially when they spent, and I'm not kidding, thousands of dollars, to fly out there to support the organization. A wave, a smile goes a long way. And I think them not feeling like they had that experience rise into some of this overall frustration about what's going on with the team and not understanding what's happening. Um, so I'm hoping that when everything settles, when all the decisions have been made and no more trades can happen, that front office will make an effort to engage with fans or message out to fans and make themselves more available and just talk about kind of what went behind all of what was happening. Because the speculation is hurting the base. And I can understand why there's not a lot of discussion happening right now because you're in the mix of what's happening. But we have been a team that has created a culture of this interconnectivity and getting it to where it is today. So to go from kind of all this movement and things progressing and all this fun happening to silence and not understanding why all these changes are happening, um, could prove detrimental. And so that is just my hope is that, and that's my belief, is that once it's all said and done, that there would be some engagement from the front office to talk more about kind of what the plan is, what the thoughts are behind it, and kind of what we should look to expect. So that is my summary of everything that happened. Would love to hear your feedback as well. Like I said, I do have some more content that's going to be coming out over the next few days. And yeah, but overall, I'm glad that I was there. And frankly, I'm grateful that I was able to be able to fly out there, to be a part of it and to engage with other fans. There were folks that walked up to me and was like, "Hey, I know who you are." And I was like, "Oh, thank you. That was kind of cool." But I enjoyed it. I love seeing this team grow and continue to make moves and hopefully continue to prosper. And I think we're going to have a good second season. But again, I think it's going to come with or have some element of needing front office to increase their engagement with with their fans on some level. Um, so that's it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are about some of the things I've shared, and we will pick up next time, you guys. So thank you so much. I hope you all are having a great Father's Day weekend, Juneteenth weekend, and I will see you next time on Crank Up the Volume.